It's 2004. George W. Bush is running for re-election. The Iraq War is spiraling into a mess of misinformation and oil. MySpace is the peak of social media, and in the wake of Finding Nemo's critical success, DreamWorks releases Shark Tale, starring a pre-slapped Will Smith.
In West Philadelphia.
Yeah, we're not doing that. And just like every other IP in the early 2000s, it gets its very own video game adaptation. Now, I was 6 years old when this movie came out, and let me tell you, 6-year-old me loved it. Why? I loved Will Smith. Will? Please, I'm trying to tell a story. Anyway, how could you not love Will Smith? Will! Anyway, how could you not love this guy? He was in his prime. Or something. So when I unwrapped the GameCube game for my birthday, I was ecstatic.
Shark Tale the game.
And to be honest, I loved the game too, or something. You see, this game stayed with me. Literally. It survived cross-country moves, was always prominently on my shelf of games to grab and play at a moment's notice. Wait, who put that there? That's not mine. Heck, the game even made the cut to come to college with me. And it had no business making it that far, because I never even finished it. I never even got that far into it. Chapter 3, to be exact. A hellish, underwater dance-off minigame that was unbelievably difficult. Was it actually hard? I have no clue, but I would try for days to beat it, eventually give up, go play something else for a bit, then come crawling back like a kid who swore off Hot Pockets after third-degree mouth burns, but found one in the freezer at 2 a.m.
Hot Pockets!
But no matter how many times I tried
all the time.
it always ended in failure. This went on for a few years, maximum 3. But I was young, and that was long enough for the whole thing to turn into a core moment in my personal lore. The rhythm level that I just couldn't beat. A trial I never overcame, and it has lived as a veritable Goliath in my mind since. And now, it's been 20 years. I've paid taxes, I've known heartbreak, I have overcome countless personal obstacles, but I have never beaten that level until now. This is the story of my return to Shark Tale the video game, a game that took me 20 years to beat. Is it actually as hard as I remember? Or was I just a dumb kid with no rhythm?
I ain't got rhythm.
Oscar and the gang just swam in from Shark Tale, spinning, dancing, and swirling into action. There are 10 in all, one in every kid's meal. Respect. Only at Burger King.
Pulling out my GameCube and popping this game in felt wrong. This wasn't my first time revisiting a game from the early 2000s, but something about Shark Tale felt extra janky. The title screen hit me with a wave of low-resolution nostalgia so powerful I nearly blacked out. The colors, the music, the horrifying fish faces, the screaming crabs. It was all just slightly lower budget than I remembered, but I'm not gonna lie, the opening level kinda slapped. Oscar, a blue streak cleaner wrasse for the fish enthusiasts among you, opens the game in a nightmare sequence where he is being chased by a massive shark through the reef. It's a high-octane, low-poly fever dream. Just kidding. The opening is really just following on-screen indicators interlaced with more cutscenes than Monster Hunter Wilds. Anyway, after successfully swimming around the screen like a wriggly little QTE champion, Oscar wakes up screaming to find himself getting kicked out of his apartment by a pufferfish landlady and a pair of repo fish for not paying rent. A scene that had far more impact on me in my 20s than it did when I was 6. Unsurprisingly, I zipped through those first levels, swimming circles around lava lamps, entering random fish homes without permission, launching unsuspecting passersby into the stratosphere, and casually threatening a group of kids with police brutality.
Cops are gonna send you up the river if you don't clean this up. Got it?
Crystal, baby, we're on it.
It wasn't the most intentional gameplay. Like, nothing about the mechanics reinforces the narrative. It's clunky in that beautiful early 2000s shovelware kind of way. It was the kind of game where genre consistency was absolutely not on the list of requirements. Nonetheless, I was having a good time. It definitely helped to remind myself, though, that this game was made for 6-year-olds, not a chronically online man-child with a caffeine addiction, generalized joint pain, and 130 hours in Baldur's Gate 3. Anyway, I knocked out Chapter 1, 2A, and 2B, one after another. And then I started to get a little worried.
I'm just a little worried.
It had taken me like 15 minutes to eclipse the point I reached in my childhood playthrough. I was flying through the early chapters with zero resistance, no deaths, no frustration, no struggle, just table fans, pearls, and fish-on-fish violence. And I started to wonder, was Chapter 3 really that bad? Had I misremembered it? Was 6-year-old me just soft? Or worse, was 6-year-old me bad at video games?
Yeah, bad. Right.
But then I remembered, those levels weren't the problem back then either. I had beaten them before. They were meant to be easy. They were the tutorials where they taught you the controls. And what better way to learn those controls than with a little bit of sensory overload?
Hey, you're kinda slow, aren't you? You could use your dash to circle them 5 furnaces before they smash on the ground!
Up until this point, I was swimming with inflatable arm floaties on, doggy paddling towards my dad as he slowly stepped backwards. But I knew what was next. Up next was the deep end. No floaties, no dad, just me and the beat.
There's something fishy going on in special packs of Kellogg's Frosties, Cocoa Pops, and Rice Krispies. So dive in and hook yourself a free Shark Tail water maze. With 5 to collect, make a splash with Kellogg's and free Shark Tail water mazes.
The science here is simple. I could beat Chapter 1 and 2 as a kid. I could not beat Chapter 3 as a kid. I could beat Chapters 1 and 2 as an adult, so by that logic, Chapter 3 was going to suck. And here I was, at Chapter 3, a level that had been seared into my memory for 2 whole decades. I knew what was coming. I remembered the visuals, I remembered the stress, I remembered the music. Oh yeah, I never mentioned the music. Whatever, I'll just play the level.
Hey, look at the crazy moving arrows! Press the buttons when those bad boys get to the bottom to pull out your fanciest jig, good buddy!
You can't touch this. Can't touch this.
It's a standard rhythm game for directional D-pad input, timed presses, nothing fancy. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. I hit every note, like every single note. No misses. Cleared the whole first track on my first try. How on earth did this game cement itself in my brain for so many years if it was that easy? I clicked past the results screen to continue to the next level. Chapter 3. Wait, what the fuck? And then it started over.
Hey, look at the crazy moving arrows! Press the buttons when those bad boys get to the bottom to pull out your fanciest jig, good buddy!
You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
What the actual fuck? Didn't I just beat it?
What is going on?
Apparently, in order to actually beat the level, you need to score over 75%. But how did you not get 75% when you hit every note, I hear you ask? Okay, sure, they weren't perfect hits, but still, I objectively hit 100% of the inputs. It says I missed 0. Anyway, I tried again.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
0 misses, and it looped back. So I tried again.
You can't touch this.
Still perfect, and that's when it hit me. This was it. This exact situation. This is what 6-year-old me had experienced. It wasn't hard to hit the notes. It was just impossible to win for some reason. At this point, I was getting frustrated. So I got a little sloppy and I missed a few notes. So I thought, okay, this one's a dud. Time to lock in on the next one. But then it worked. I had beaten the level. What the fuck? Why did I win the level when I missed notes, but lose when I hit them all? Side note, the answer to that question is that the percentage you get at the end of the level is not a measurement of the percentage of notes hit, like it would be in a game like Guitar Hero, for example, but is instead a measurement of the total points you can earn for all notes, meaning that even though I was hitting all of the notes, because I had so many bad hits, my score ended up lower than the attempt in which I missed a few. If I had known back then that the scoring mechanic was based on timing, that hitting the notes wasn't enough unless you hit them perfectly, would I have beaten the level? Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe Chapter 3 was always destined to become MC Boogeyman, lurking in the dark corners of my memory, haunting me every time I heard,
You can't touch this.
It's hard to say. 6-year-old me was just sitting there, watching Oscar dance, hitting every arrow, and still somehow losing. And that confusion, it was enough. Enough to make me quit. Not out of rage, not even out of sadness, just disinterest. Because the truth is, I had other games. A lot of other games, and when you're 6, your patience for things that don't make sense is razor thin. When Chapter 3 presented me with my first real roadblock, I was given a choice: give up or power through. And if my experience back then was anything like my experience now, the game just didn't offer enough of an incentive to keep going. It simply wasn't good enough or interesting enough to warrant the effort it would have taken 6-year-old me to beat Chapter 3. And that might be the real story here. Maybe Shark Tale, the game, was never some impossible challenge. Maybe it wasn't a behemoth I couldn't conquer. Maybe it was just a game I didn't care to finish. But over time, that story changed because I kept hearing the song.
You can't touch this.
because the memory kept coming back, because I never beat it. And slowly, that choice to quit playing a game morphed into something else. A fake memory, entirely reshaped by time. It stopped being a game I didn't care to finish, and became a game I was never good enough to finish. And I think there's a lesson in that, somewhere. So after 20 years, I came back. I faced the boogeyman. I beat him. So what was next? Well, I figured I may as well finish the game. Turns out, there were 25 chapters in total. I had barely scratched the surface. The levels got harder, sure, but not better. After chapter 5, they were mostly just reskins of the same environments with the same objectives, just a little more annoying and a lot more unforgiving. There were 4 more rhythm sections. They tried to spice things up with button combinations, but it was poorly implemented. And the songs, just worse, because really, you can't touch
this.
I beat all of the remaining rhythm levels on the first try, all of them. On some, I even ignored the combined inputs and still won. In the end, it took me just over 2 hours to finish the whole game. Well, 2 hours and 20 years. And when the credits rolled, I kinda just sat there. Because the truth is, the game wasn't good. It wasn't even bad enough to be interesting. It was overwhelmingly meh. But that's the funny part, because I never finished it as a kid. Because I walked away when it wasn't worth finishing, my brain filled in the blanks. I gave it space to grow, to fester, to become myth. And by doing that, I accidentally turned it into a ticking dopamine time bomb. I took a mediocre rhythm level and let it stew in my subconscious for 2 whole decades until it became a mini-boss from my childhood. So yeah, maybe chapter 3 was never that hard. Maybe the game was never that deep. But when I finally beat it, it felt pretty good. Not because the game was satisfying, but because I made it satisfying. Because my brain built a pedestal the game could never have earned on its own. And honestly, I think that's pretty cool. Because yeah, the game was tedious, forgettable, and aggressively fine. But I beat it, I finished the stupid fish game, and I walked away feeling like I had slapped Chris Rock on the stage of the Oscars, and there were no repercussions. Well, actually, that makes literally no sense. But I did walk away feeling like I had won. I had beaten the enemy that had taunted me for 20 years. It was over. It was done. There was nothing left that could keep me up at night. Oh my god, there's a GBA game too? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, because it literally took me 20 years to make. And if you or a loved one has been personally victimized by an early 2000s rhythm minigame, please share your story in the comments below. Together, we can heal.